After a pretty busy weekend of multiple releases across languages, we have Anurag Kashyap's directed film Dobaaraa starring Taapsee Pannu and Pavail Gulati in lead roles. With little to no buzz around the film, I was privy to the original Spanish film Mirage that released in 2018. The Hindi film is an official remake of that movie that is available on Netflix, and a timeline for which I have been notified is that the rights were bagged for the film even before Mirage went on the floors for shooting, presumably alluding to the fact that Anurag has made his own rendition of the source material. After movies like Game Over, Manadu, and Loop Lapeta, we have an interesting story that takes into account time travel and the slight changes that lead to the butterfly effect across timelines. The film focuses on a couple that moves into a new home only to find a vintage camera and television in the attic. The tapes showcase a little boy recording himself in the same room. Understanding the story of the death of the child that happened years ago, Taapsee's character Antara gets drawn to the television only to realize that she and the boy can communicate with one another, their dimensions being connected through a time tunnel formed by the storms that occur simultaneously. How several changes in the past alter the present and absolutely topple every significant detail in Antara's life forms the basic storyline of Dobaaraa. How she retraces her path and attempts to get her old life back makes this saga of time travel and emotional bonds an interesting premise. Here's me telling you the good and bad aspects of the film so that you guys can ultimately decide whether to watch Dobaaraa in theaters or not. The good. Background score. The craziest aspect of this film is that it has the potential to use its exhilarating background score in several instances of the film, but it does so sporadically that it doesn't even utilize the brilliant score composed by Shore Police. The background music could have really elevated the storyline, but what we are left with is a movie that doesn't even utilize its best technical traits to its full potential. The cast. I actually cannot fault any of the actors for their work in this film, as they have precisely done as they could have with the written material. The role of Antara, played by Taapsee Pannu, can only be done at the pitch performed by the actor, in constant anxiety, panic, and in worry of one state in the world transported to. There are moments where some of the dialogues become unintentionally funny, especially near the climax where Taapsee, after becoming fully aware of portals and parallel universes, in a very emotional scene says, "Ye parallel universe nahi samajh aata mujhe." The pitch at which she performs the role cannot be faulted because the adaptation skills are pedestrian at best. Pavail Gulati as the police officer leading the charge really is a hit and a miss for me, delivering in the subtle moments, in between the dialogues, in the slight eye contact between sentences, but really misses the mark in the supposed emotional climax of the film. If you want to look at one actor that really leaves a lasting impression and genuinely feels like a character from an Anurag Kashyap film, it has to be Rahul Bhatt, providing the only genuinely funny moments from the movie. His visible frustration at Taapsee's incessant questioning really had me chuckling. Saswata Chatterjee playing the mysterious neighbor can only do so much, but again I want to reiterate the problem is the storytelling and not the vessels, aka the actors through which it is told. The underwhelming aspects. Information vomit. The film, if you look at it from a screenplay point of view, is not complicated at all. Sequences between characters are not designed in a non-linear fashion or assisted with complex editing. It is the most basic and pedestrian way in which stories are moved forward, where one character vomits all the information known to them. As Taapsee through most of the film is disoriented and is trying to understand her relationship with several characters in another parallel universe, most of the movie is her frustration presented side by side with characters thinking she's delusional. The setting itself is not the problem, but the lack of innovation from a screenplay point of view to exactly present it the way the 2018 Spanish films showcase the same. My biggest gripe with the original film was how it packed its information and spilled it out in long rants by the main character, and the Hindi remake becomes a dubbed version of the same. What's sad, however, is that while the Spanish film emotionally drew me in, making me even teary-eyed on how it creates the connection between alternate realities in its climax, especially the mother-daughter relationship, there was not an iota of the same in this film, which I will come to later. Not lending anything unique to its Indian adaptation has been this movie's biggest problem. Abrupt music. The music has been composed by Shore Police and Gaurav Chatterjee, and while I've raved about the background score that they have sporadically used in this film, it is the music that doesn't lend anything to the storyline and is so abruptly placed in the screenplay of the film that you really do wonder whether Anurag Kashyap was sleepwalking through the final edit of this movie. I'm seeing reviews talking about the nail-biting design of the film from a thriller perspective, but if that's the case, then the bar has become really low of what kind of products we want to love and celebrate, especially in terms of thrillers. lack of urgency and emotional depth. I know this is a review of this film and not a comparison with the original movie or just the movie that came before this, but I have to address the elephant in the room. The clear and superior factor of the Spanish film was the emotional depth that was kept intact despite being convoluted in terms of its plot. The bond between a mother and daughter really hit home, especially in the concluding moments, inadvertently making me emotional as well, and this was absolutely lacking in the Hindi film. Anurag Kashyap often attempts to create dialogues between characters that sound real, and in the attempt for that authenticity, oftentimes interactions seem to have a sense of awkwardness rather than surety. These are great for the world of Imtiaz Ali that heightens a sense of animosity between characters in the silences, but when in an emotional climax characters are fumbling through sentences, it just doesn't emotionally draw you in. This is especially true for Pavail and Taapsee's interaction in the climax. The bar can't be so low for an Anurag Kashyap film that you can give it a pass on the sheer fact that it adapts the screenplay and the case of time travel well. That's the bare minimum that one would expect from an Anurag Kashyap film. To make matters worse, when the stakes get extremely risky, there is not even an attempt to make audiences feel this sense of urgency. Rather than taking you through a heart rate monitor of an active person, one simply takes the shape of being docile and dormant. Where is Anurag Kashyap? Thrillers to a point now with no sense of music or escapism and the sheer ability in designing a complex screenplay and narrative are sadly dead for a theatre-going audience. One is carefully choosing what is the bang for the buck in terms of the big cinema experience, and when on paper itself you present a remake of a film or at least a film that is now readily available online for viewing, and to make matters worse, don't really offer anything new in regard to the same, what I'm left with are only thoughts that I grew up with at a time when Anurag Kashyap films was something that everyone looked forward to, for the sheer fact that the man was known to test boundaries, both in terms of filmmaking and stories he wanted to tell. But to see a time where a creator like him is doing a remake or an adaptation of a script handed to him and barely leaving any footprint of making it his own, I hope this is not the norm and we get to see the filmmaker that we all grew up appreciating and singing praises of in our formative years. And that was the video, guys. Write down in the comments below what you thought about the movie. Please don't forget to follow me on Instagram. The handle's right in front of you. Follow me at JammyPants4. Also, please support us by smashing the like button and subscribing to our channel for weekly content ahead. Thank you for watching.